No, not wooing you. We woo.
We woo?
We woo. Ooh woo. Ooh woo we woo. You who?
This is what happens to you when you start watching VTuber content. This is what happens.
Yeah,
This is a direct result of
Does
that.
it get worse?
Yes, it gets worse.
Okay.
Mercedes, what day are you on for watching Garagura content?
Like 3?
3 days? Is this your third day?
5?
Fourth day?
12? It's been 7
Do you
years.
even remember when you started?
It's been 7 years since the war, my friends. The war of the A.N.I.M.E VTubers.
What are you talking about?
The day they took over and became our overlords.
There wasn't a war.
All right, we're live. Woo! Are we ready to get this show on the road?
Wait, this is a road show?
Yeah, can I do my intro now?
I didn't sign up for this. Yeah, do your intro.
Okay. Hello there and happy holidays, my fellow weebs. Welcome to the A.N.I.M.E podcast. If you don't know, that stands for Animatronic Neanderthals Impersonate Movie Extras. Now you know. Today we're going to be talking about the wonderful thing that's totally related to the holidays because, you know, the holidays, you eat food. We're going to talk about food anime. Woo!
Yay!
We prepared for this.
Did we?
So we're going to go around and we're each going to just start off with, it's going to be a new segment. We're each going to start off with what we're watching, generally speaking. And then we probably will then segue into food. So yeah, why don't we start with you, Aunt Now? What are you watching right now in the world of anime?
Yeah, so I have been slowly working through Noragami. So I finished the first season of that. Pretty good. And I did also very recently finish the third season of Attack on Titan in preparation for season 4. And for the preparation for this episode, I've been watching a bit of Food Wars and a bit of Drifting Dragon. And I will definitely be talking more about those shows very soon.
I cannot wait to hear you rage. Eddie? I feel like I'm channeling my inner, commentator today. Alright, Eddie, what are you watching?
Hi. Hello, commentator John. You watch too much VTuber content. You're taking on their, VTuber voice.
I'm pretty sure this is just, how you present, but okay.
You're not what?
Also, there's somebody outside who just keeps screaming. I don't know if you can...
Oh, that's the child in the street. That always happens. That's it. That's, every day since COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, I have one of those on my street too.
Yeah. See?
Okay. I just wanted to.
Did you never have a child that just ran into the street? Well, you do live across the street from a graveyard, so I guess it's not as
back
common.
home. Yeah. Anyway, what are you watching, Eddie?
Let's see. I was also watching the season 3 of Attack on Titan and lead up to the new season coming out. I'm very excited for that. It was a really interesting experience. That's how I'll describe that. I enjoyed it a lot. It was also very interesting. Let's see, and what else I've been watching is I also watched a lot of food anime in preparation for this episode. It's been really interesting showing Mercedes.
What's my name?
Showing Whimsy.
There you go.
A lot of different entries in the food anime genre. Some of my favorites, some just general fan favorites among them. And other than that, earlier today, I was watching Goblin Slayer again in lead up because I haven't watched the new movie for Goblin Slayer, which I think is called Something Crown. I'm really excited for that, and I'll probably be watching more of that later.
Woo! Yay!
Yay!
I'm sorry.
What commentator, John? What's next?
I am very sleep deprived lately.
Wait, Whimsy, what have you watched?
Thank you, not now.
I don't
Thank you for trying to save this ship. All right. So what am I watching in the world of anime? You know what? I was actually kind of at a impasse, where I was kind of between shows to a large extent. So my anime are my food anime. They're the same category right now. So Eddie showed me, and we're watching it now together. Yakitake. Wacky
You do
Tacky.
Wacky
Wacky
Taxi.
Tacky. Wacky Taxi?
It's called Fresh Baked
Laffy
Japan.
Taffy.
No, Fresh Baked Japan.
Yeah,
Remember?
okay. Yaki Taki Japan. Did I say that right? Why are you laughing? I thought I nailed
You
it.
did it right. I'm still laughing.
Oh, okay. I nailed it and you're still laughing. Thanks.
Because
Thanks.
you made eye contact with me. I'm like, I can't say it for you.
Okay, Yaki Taki Japan.
Wacky Taxi Japan.
Sure. This is a great series, by the way, but we'll get into that in a minute. So I'm watching that. I am watching. What else am I watching? Oh, we're watching Restaurant to Another World, which I like a lot actually, and Toriko. So those are all three. I was kind of trying to sample different series, so I didn't actually finish any of them in preparation for this episode, but I am very much looking forward to especially finishing Yakitaki Japan, but also the other ones as well. Toriko will be a gradual process, kind of like One Piece. But yes, this is what I'm watching. Hooray!
I think you missed one. You watched Food Wars.
Oh, I guess my brain tried to erase that one. I didn't watch all of it, only the first 3 episodes, and I don't really ever want to go back. But anyway.
Do we all want to start with talking about Food Wars then? Because I think all of us have at least seen the first few episodes.
Be a good idea. Do you want to start out now?
Yeah, so I watched the first 3.5 episodes. One thing that I really did enjoy about the show is some of the creativity with the recipes that they would do on the episodes. Like, it's not just people are going to make beef and that's it. There was a lot of attempt to try to make either barriers that result in like having more of a creative dish or things like that. If it wasn't for the fact that I cannot eat like any of those dishes, I'd be very tempted to try some of the things that they did in the episodes. Like, I thought it was really interesting how they used honey to try to like prepare meat. I thought that was a really interesting idea, and how they used potatoes to cook meat inside of it itself to get a product. I guess my chemistry nerd brain really finds it interesting to see these things. Most likely it's hitting the same thing that like kind of hit me for Dr. Stone. Now I'm pretty sure I know what is making you not like the show, and I agree with that. But also, I like chemistry or like things like that are trying to be like educational.
Hey you! Hey you weeb! You weeb over there! Come watch our commercial!
Have you ever been looking at the list of new anime? You've been thinking of what to watch? Well, maybe this one's for you. Follow the story of a little boy, a mobster, and a crocodile as they fight for supremacy in this tournament. Watch Tower of God today.
This show's not a show that like everyone's going to like because there's a lot of other aspects, but I think for like my nerd side of my brain, I do really like these explanations of honey and how it can help you with cooking and things like that. Though, I would have to actually try it out to see if these are actually legit things or they're just making it up.
Yeah, I will give it credit. There were things that I actually did enjoy about the show, and that was kind of something I wanted to like contrast with Restaurant in Another World. Compare and contrast. I agree that there were some good things because the first episode, despite how hard they leaned into the fan service, the first episode I enjoyed the most because it did have that thing that I'm finding now that I'm experiencing the food anime genre. I'm finding I really like about food anime, which is that sort of like wholesome, homey feel. I've never really been able to get into slice of life anime, but I feel like after this past couple weeks, food anime is going to be my gateway into slice of life because for some reason, food anime is more than anything else so far brings out the parts I really like and just kind of like accentuates them. And the first episode of Food Wars had that because it was like a family restaurant and, a father teaching a son And they even had this like cute gimmick. It's like, yes, it's a gimmick, but I actually thought it was like a cute idea of like they cook people really, really delicious food, but then as a gag, at the end of the day, they always try something gross. Like, I liked that element. Like, I liked the sort of more wholesome family element, which made it all the more, and that was like its redeeming quality, which made it all the more frustrating when I go to episode 2 and it's just like, bye, son. Go to this elite cooking academy where there's a tsundere and you're gonna compete in like a battle style, like tournament style food competitions and try to become the best. Here you go. And I was just like, all right. I'm really glad I only committed to 3 episodes of this. And that, to be fair, there will probably be people who love Food Wars and will say, well, you're missing out because he gets some of that back, right? The slice of life, wholesomeness, because I'm sure there are character interactions once he bonds with his classmates and whatever. So I'm recognizing a bias, you know, and ignorance because I haven't seen the rest of the show. But I'm just talking about, like, my experience sampling it in the beginning. But yes, I will compare it later to Restaurant End of the World, but I want to give Eddie his turn to talk about Food Wars.
I agree with a lot of the things you're saying. Like, to be honest, the flavor of the types of fan service that show up in Food Wars, which is always the overblown, like, wow, this is so delicious, right? Reactions is like a standpoint for a lot of different food anime in general. Part of the reason that me and Whimsy both really enjoyed Fresh Baked Japan was that the reactions were almost like someone in the series recognized, I have worked out too hard today. If I eat that delicious bread, I will be racked with pain because I will just be overcome with how delicious this bread is.
Yeah.
So it's like, in comparison, Food Wars just has its reactions really overblown to have fan service. And I feel like it kind of takes away from like all of the really like in-depth stuff they do in terms of like an obstacle or like a thing, like, you know, a hump they have to overcome in terms of like cooking things a certain way or, you know, competing in a competition and coming out on top. The flavor is very strong and it does get really tiresome around the first couple of episodes, which is why I did recommend to Whimsy that if she liked what she saw in the beginning of the series, she should try to watch more, because once the flavor...
Stop saying flavor. Stop it.
This, you know, thins out a little bit.
You don't like the taste of that word on your mouth?
It's the first time I was like, aha, I see what you did there. But now you just keep saying it. Like every other word. Stop it. Sorry.
Once the flavor thins out, you will enjoy the dish a lot more.
Too many puns. Okay, I say too many puns. Yeah, I'm like really tooting the horn of Yakitaki Japan and like literally
fresh baked Japan.
Fresh baked Japan.
You can't even say fresh baked.
I can't even say it in English. How the heck am I gonna say it in Japanese? I'm like tooting the horn of Fresh Baked Japan and criticizing puns, but literally the entire premise of Fresh Baked Japan is based on a pun. So like I see the contradiction there.
You said pun instead of pun.
Oh no. The pun lore is deepening. I'm falling deeper in the pun hole. The pun hole. The pun hole.
The pun hole?
I dropped my phone. We're already trash firing and this just started. I'm sorry. I am really sleep deprived right now. All right. How do we segue from this? Go on, Eddie. Oh, sorry. You were talking. Go on.
Well, I was just gonna give a small fact before we transition, because Japan, they say it Japan because pan is Japanese for bread, and that's also the word in Spanish for bread. So conspiracy. No, most likely just like shared.
But yeah, I agree completely, because I know the moment that I saw melon bread in Fresh Baked Japan, the show, and I was like, wait a second, I know that. That's a concha, as in the Mexican sweetbread, where it's cookie on top and bread in the bottom. And I was like, wait a second, where did this come from? And it was actually really interesting to see like a tradition that I usually associate with like Mexican, like, you know, food culture, like especially when I was younger, to see it appear completely across the world in like its own iteration.
I think that's one of the cool things about food. Is like there are so many similarities yet differences, and things get globalized and then turned into like such unique new things and concepts. Um, I kind of look forward to seeing more of that as I watch food anime, sort of like the interesting cultural connections. And also just to like clarify for the audience, the pun Otno brought up is actually the exact pun the show is based on. Japan, get it? Haha. Because the whole like intro is that you have French pawn, English pawn, German pawn, but there's no Japan. There are Japanese breads, but there's no bread that Japan is like known for. So this kid is determined. His dream is to create Japan, and he's gonna achieve it because he's really talented, and also he has these magical hands of the sun that make his bread taste better because anime. And it's amazing, and I love this show. It's so good. It's so good.
Honestly, I was really afraid when another character grabbed his hands because I thought he was just gonna melt through them. Like he had like atomic radiation hands, and whenever he touched things, he cooked them. Like for a second, I wasn't sure that was the joke they were making, but it turns out to be way less. Is like I think it describes he ferments the bread quicker as he like kneads the dough or something, and it makes some come out really like flavorful in comparison. There's some like anime chemistry thing that they bring up, and that's to explain why the main character is like has a innate blood technique superpower. Kekai.
There was a word for this, and it isn't ferment, and this was actually bugging me because I was telling my grandmother about this show, and the entire time we were talking, I felt bad because we were talking about things, but my brain was still just like, what the heck is that word? You know, and you can't, and now it's gonna bug me again because I still don't know what the word is. There's a word for it. It's not ferment, and it's gonna bug me now.
Well, we don't know how to bake, so I don't think it matters.
Okay, it's still gonna bug me now.
If anyone knows what word we're trying to think of, to put it in the comment section. Call us dumb or something.
You better sit your butt down and watch this commercial because it is commercial time. You don't have a choice.
Are you tired of having to read your biology textbook? Do you want to somehow make your anime watching seem like it's actually productive? Watch Cells at Work. Eddie, lead the way so that we can taste another anime.
Another flavorful anime that we sampled for the food anime episode was Toriko. Toriko was a
puns
shonen, which was really interesting because it follows the story of a chef, right, who finds a gourmet hunter to partner with, and the gourmet hunter's job is to be the biggest, muscliest person at all times, and to fight to the death with sentient food beings, so that way the cook can acquire ingredients to make delicious food. This is a series I followed for a long time. I read the manga to completion, and I love this series. It is not a spoiler to say that they, at the end of the road, they find, defeat, and taste God.
What?
This series is insane and zany and cartoony, and it's amazing. And I'm really happy that Whimsy enjoyed the little bit of a sample that she was able to try.
Your puns are leaving a bad taste in my mouth.
Japan.
Oh god. Okay, that was awful and cringy and I hate it. Okay. So, though I actually did really enjoy the show. We watched it a little while ago, so my brain is not totally recalling everything I liked about it, but one thing I did get a kick out of is that the very first episode is a One Piece crossover.
I totally forgot that was the thing, because we started Toriko and it showed Luffy, and I was like, What the hell is Luffy doing
No,
to
no, no.
Toriko?
You walked in the room because I started it, right?
Yeah.
And then you walked in the room and you thought I was watching One Piece and you thought I was watching like hundreds of episodes from where I am One Piece and you were like, spoilers, what are you doing? And I was like, this is Toriko. And you were like, wait, the first episode is a crossover episode.
If you don't know this, the first episode of Toriko is a crossover episode with the One Piece cast, where the One Piece characters find a gourmet island and meet Toriko and his best friend, and they fight sentient barbecue pork boars.
And despite there being characters who aren't introduced in the beginning of One Piece that are introduced way later, just to clarify for the audience, there aren't really spoilers. So it is safe to watch if you want to start Toriko and you have not watched a lot of One Piece.
I have questions. So you're saying that Toriko is in canon, in the same universe as One Piece?
You know what? Their universes are definitely compatible, I would say, because they both have this sort of like zany, wacky... Like honestly, the whole concept of the gourmet island really fits in a world where there's a all blue, right? An ocean with all the different types of fish. Like, those two things could totally coexist in the same universe, so sure.
Canonically, no, they do not exist in the same world. Although the One Piece, Toriko, and I believe Fairy Tail / Rave Master creators have had multiple crossovers in manga form. And it's been reported by a lot of different anime sites because I checked this after seeing the One Piece Toriko episode. The creators of One Piece and Toriko are really good friends, and thus their series cross over a lot.
It's me. This is just a side note about One Piece. The One Piece creator is also friends with the Naruto creator, and apparently, like, they've only recently in One Piece like added like a lot of like super like Japanese stuff like samurais and stuff. And apparently the creator of One Piece said that he didn't want to basically like do a lot of that stuff while Naruto was ongoing because he felt like he was kind of like stepping on like, you know, like his friend's territory basically, which is like super sweet. There's enough room for both of you in this world.
That's really interesting. It is sweet.
It's really interesting too because in terms of storytelling, it makes a lot more sense, timeline wise in the story of One Piece that they would reach this island so late, because in that series the Japanese island is actually what's it called?
Japan?
No, it's not Japan. It's not the bread island. It is isolationist, I think is what that thing is called. They cut themselves off from the world for a very specific story reason, of which I will not talk of more.
I do find
spoil 1,000 chapters of One Piece right now.
I can't. I won't.
I do find it really interesting how many, well, I say how many, there are only 2 examples coming to my mind right now, but like, I'm sure there are probably more, that I've come across a couple different Japanese stories that are set in a fantasy world that's not modeled at all after Japan, it's more modeled after Europe, and then the more you explore the world, they eventually introduce a Japan land, like a Japan world, right? Because it's something in Final Fantasy 14 too. So I just find it really interesting that like there's a lot of Japanese franchises that take that route. I'm kind of curious as to like if I don't know. I'm just kind of curious if that has to do with like a fascination among the authors' parts with like just different parts of the world, so they want to explore like a different context, or also if part of it is like if you create like an alternate universe, your world, and have it be distinct from like the main setting of the world, it allows you to kind of like explore your own context in like a unique way or like from a unique angle. I don't know. I just find it interesting.
I guess maybe it's it could be related to how if you start a story in a very Japan-like place to a Japanese audience, then it's going to be something very familiar. By starting it in some place completely separate, you are kind of setting the stage like you need to learn about this world a lot more. While like when you get into maybe the Japanese stuff, there's kind of an assumption that there's more of a knowledge of what you're getting into. That'd
That's a
be a
good point.
guess.
Yeah, it's sort of like sets the tone for the audience of like, hey audience, like pay attention to the details instead of just taking them for granted.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I would
Yeah.
say, oh, sorry.
Oh no, you go.
I would say that a lot of anime and like a lot of writing in terms of like different shows in the anime genre commonly use that trope too, because it's like you usually start the audience off like completely breaking their sense of familiarity with something, right? And that you can see that in food anime too. Like a lot of the times we've started food anime, they usually pick a really weird or really interesting creative thing that the main character cooks in a certain way. So you go, wow, this is like really crazy that he did this thing that I've never seen or heard anyone do before. And then slowly, as you continue to the show, the recipes usually get more familiar, and so do the flavors. So that way, it's you get wowed, and then as the show continues and you get started invested in like characters and like the story and like competitions or progression, just even though the recipes may be more like relatable to you or like identifiable, they work in terms of the storytelling.
I really like that like technique. I'm not sure how intentional it is always, but it definitely can be intentional because it's very similar to in sci-fi where you start off in like an alien context or like in deep space or another planet, and then people who've never been on Earth come to Earth, and so you're making Earth, the familiar, seem just so novel and strange, and so all the things you take for granted you suddenly like appreciate, and they're just depicted as like these majestic, wonderful things. And I've always just really loved that sort of like writing approach. So this makes me even more excited to watch like food anime and see like that genre's take on that, because I really love that about sci-fi.
That makes me think like ah so I mentioned earlier that I am watching Drifting Dragons, and I call this a food anime because it's about people that go and hunt dragons and eat them. That's the show. And so basically every single time they're eating these dragons, like it's a made up dish. So there's always a foreignness to it. And to be honest, a lot of their approach to things just generally so foreign to me. It's basically a whaling ship. That's basically what they are.
Oh.
And whaling is not something that I'm the biggest fan of, but with dragons. But like it makes you wonder like a show like this where it's kind of like very much meant to like put you very outside, I feel like, from your comfort zone of your understanding of things with the dragons, because definitely I feel like most people would not really connect very well with like what these people are doing per se, because most of us have not been whalers in our lives. But I wonder if there's going to be a point in like maybe the manga or the source material where it would become more familiar and more something there. It's like, okay, I understand more of what's happening here. Not sure if that made sense.
No, it made sense.
Yeah.
It also just makes me wonder now, is The Promised Neverland a food anime?
Technically, yes. And that is probably the scariest thing about it.
If Drifting Dragons is a food anime by your criteria out now, then, I mean, Promised Neverland could be considered a food anime.
Going on the record, Mercedes is
What is my name?
Going on the record, Whimsy is saying that orphans count
God.
as a food anime item. And that Promised Neverland is a show about food escaping the pantry.
So that also means that Attack on Titan is a food anime.
Oh my god.
We are broadening the genre.
Attack on Titan is technically a food anime, and it's like, imagine having to scale multiple obstacles to eat just like a general food thing running from. Oh my god.
Yeah,
this is
and
not
you know what? Even like the humans in the show are super into food, because like they also discuss a lot about like starvation and stuff like that. And you've got Potato Girl, who loves potatoes, and literally was ready to like murder a guy because they were keeping him away from food.
Can
So
relate.
yeah, so it's most likely the most relatable anime because, eating people is relatable.
I mean, if somebody was keeping me away from my potatoes, I mean,
She stabbed a guy for stealing a piece of meat from her because none of the soldiers had like eaten a meat dish before. That was actually part of the really interesting things about Attack on Titan is that like alongside just its general like zombie survival-esque, world, in terms of how they like see food and how they relate to food was always really interesting because like when they got to eat meat for the first time, it was a really big deal. Like, not a lot of them have ever actually seen meat, let alone eaten it before. But it's, like, really interesting because most of them live in, like, to an extent, in towns or cities with, like, really small farms. So it just shows, like, how different it is and probably how scarce meat is in that context is even interesting in its own way.
that can be really interesting. Like, even if it's not necessarily a food anime, exploring like a community of people's relationship with food can be just really interesting to watch. Now when we watch Silver Spoon, you're gonna see that explored a lot. Is very good.
Yeah. That will be interesting to see. I think like just like going back a bit onto the meat topic. I just want to add like I and I'm going to be generalizing a bit, but like in a lot of like, more ancient societies and stuff like that, meat was like very much a luxury thing. It wasn't accessible to the majority of the populace because by killing an animal, you are taking away its ability to create more food. It's basically like the equivalent of saying I'm going to, let's say I'm going to build a ladder by using the ladder making machine, but as in like you like literally like walking up the ladder making machine rather than like using it to make ladders. Like now it's a ladder and you can no longer make more ladders of sorts. Because like if you kill the cow, it can't make milk, it can't do that kind of stuff. So historically we have not like meat has not been like as much, at least from like a farming perspective, something that has been associated with people that don't have as much money. But now it's so accessible to us, at least in the United States where we are located, where we often don't think about it. The fact that it is a luxury in itself that we can take an animal and use it for a one-use purpose, essentially.
Yeah, and similarly interesting too in terms of like the relationships between people and food and like that kind of like like direct context, right? There was another thing in Fresh Baked Japan that was really interesting too, and it was like whenever the main character thought about using milk or using cheese in a dish, it was always from the context of like he always grew up with goat cheese, using goat milk for different things, and his family didn't have a cow on the farm that he grew up on. So it never really occurred to him to use cow's milk for some of these dishes. And it actually comes up to a point where like someone is allergic to I think it's butter. There was a character whose
It's
family
lactose.
was
Lactate.
allergic to lactate, right?
Lactic,
Lactic-
whatever that term
lactic
is.
something.
Whatever
right?
goat milk doesn't have.
And it turns out that in that episode they actually explained that by him using goat milk to make that bread, it was actually able to bypass that allergy because goat milk doesn't have that protein that causes that reaction. And that was actually like an obstacle he overcame without even really thinking about it, because the main character doesn't, his strength isn't thinking, that's how we'll say it.
I was gonna say, you make this plot line sound so logical.
Like, it's so logical.
There's a horse, but we won't explain that significance.
But you see the main character, and he's like sprinting like 3 cities over on foot to get wasabi. And it's just like, wait, what is that guy doing? And some guy just finds him in the street, and he's like, "Do you need wasabi? I have some." He's like, "Oh, thanks.
Oh.
Cool."
Yeah, oh my god. I probably will later on just rant more about why I love Yakitaki Japan, but I don't want to derail. I wanted to ask you because this relates, and it's really interesting to hear you talk about this anime, because this is one I thought you were going to bring up in relation to what Adna said. What was that one anime about bear meat?
Oh,
Because whenever you talk about it, it's super
Oh,
interesting.
shoot.
Golden Kamui. Yes, Golden Kamui, the show about 1920s Japan, about the Russo-Japanese War, kind of, and about native Japanese, that A.N.I.M.E, I believe.
I
That's
think
what
it
they're
takes
called.
place even
Is it earlier or
is
is it
it
later?
earlier? I think it might be earlier because
Let me see.
it's after the Russo-Japanese War, and if it's the 1920s, and that would be post. Hold on one second. Sorry.
No worries.
No, not yet.
Cut to a commercial time! Would you like an anime that's incredibly, incredibly relatable? You know, an experience that we can all relate to. We've all gone through at least one point or another. You know, I don't know a single person who hasn't at some point in their life been a psychopathic businessman walking away from firing one of his employees who gets hit by a bus and then is reincarnated as a mage in a fictional war. That I mentioned that you're also a little girl now. I mean, who hasn't gone through that? It's so relatable, am I right? Well, if you can relate, my god, have I got the anime for you. Tanya, the saga of Tanya the Evil. Watch it today.
Okay, and it actually seems like for Golden Kamui, it takes place somewhere in between the period of 1868 to 1912, because the Russo-Japanese War that it references ended in 1905, and the one of the main characters is a veteran of the Russo-Japanese War, and it's really significant for his character. So.
Oh, wait. So was the 1860s then about when the Meiji Restoration was happening? Is that like kind of more in connection to, I forget the name of that character, but the one that's from like what would that be? The end of the Edo era? Do you know what I'm talking about? The old dude?
I kind of know who you're talking about. I believe he might actually be a character in Golden Kamui. I would have to double
That's what
check
I'm
though.
saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like when they're giving that like 1860s, is it because of that guy?
I think it is because one of the characters in the show, I'm trying to remember his name now, he is attempting to acquire a large amount of money so that he can reestablish um, a type of government in Japan. And I believe it's to reestablish the
Yeah.
shogun states, shogun aid,
This is like when I was trying to learn how to say
Yes.
Shoujin Roku Rakugo Shinji. That was it. I still don't know.
Shogun Roku Rokugen
Shogunate.
Shogunate.
Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't
But
sound.
yeah.
I don't think I'm saying that right.
Yeah, and he was part of the like the secret police force or something like that. And now I'm blanking on their name. I hate this.
It was really
Because this
interesting
police
too.
force was also in Rurouni Kenshin. What the heck? My history's failing me. To date myself, Extra Credits is actually doing a series right now about that war. So if you are curious, go to Extra Credits and you can actually learn the history that we are failing at explaining. I also really like shows that actually go into like historical time periods and like discuss food. So like Golden Kamui does that. Like talking about some foods that would have been maybe more common back then. I'm trying to think of like other good anime examples that are like more period PC that like actually Rurouni Kenshin actually does have like a fair amount about like, like food, partially because like the main characters are always poor. So they're always like, God dang it, we want food. And whenever they make any extra money, they're like, we're gonna get beef pot. So we're just gonna use all our money and just like get beef pots, even though it's super expensive. And this is why they never have money. But Yeah, I don't know. It's like exciting when I see like also like things like in historical sense talking about food and being like, ooh, that's what they made. Even though like something like a beef pot, like they still do, like people still do that today. But yeah,
Starbucks is the beef pop of today.
Kind of is.
sure.
I was gonna say that's a frequent gag involving food and like really like idealistic characters in anime too, because one of the funniest things in Cowboy Bebop is that they're always eating beef and broccoli without the beef because they only have enough money for broccoli. And so a character complains in an episode. It's like one of my favorite gags where it's like, you keep calling it beef and broccoli, but there's no beef. So it's just broccoli. Like, no, it's beef and broccoli.
My favorite food gag in Cowboy Bebop was the sentient lobster. So, reminder, listeners, if you're out there, double check your fridge, clean out your fridge, because whatever you've had lying in the back of that fridge since like 1964 may just develop sentience and start walking around your house.
That actually reminds me about a fun fact that actually came up. I was watching Supergirl, and so this fact came up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I knew that one." Lobster used to be actually considered like not a delicacy. It was like actually a food that was eaten by commoners, like or like like it was considered like a food that wasn't really associated with having a lot of money. And I think it was a marketing thing that led to it being like considered ritzy or something like that. But like even like our definitions about food and what they are in our society um, changes from year to year, generation to generation. I also believe that there's been a lot of shifts with kale as well in recent times. It's really interesting.
That is
This
interesting.
isn't very anime specific, but
That's
fun
okay.
fact.
That is really interesting too, because another thing that I've noticed in some anime is that, like, I guess, going back into history, another thing that really like was a delicacy, like switched its position to like not as much of a delicacy, was fruit. And there is a really interesting thing about Japanese culture that comes through into some shows where some fruit like companies produce really high quality, really like high bar like apples, oranges, grapes that cost like sometimes hundreds of dollars. And thinking back about that, fruit was probably really like a delicacy that only some people could enjoy back in time, and now we just kind of have a surplus of them at most grocery stores. And it's really interesting to see shows that take place either like in the past in Japanese history or like in um, other parts of just general like anime history where characters are like, wow, it's an apple. I've never seen one in person before.
That fruit and is still like not a delicacy, but still pretty expensive in Japan. Remember, what was it? Um, oh right, there. I believe it was actually in Full Metal Alchemist where the Fuhrer gives a melon, I think, to Edward. And I believe I saw a comment like someone's like, "Oh, that might not seem like a big deal to us, but that melon would have been pretty expensive." And I believe there was also a hint at it, like the expense of fruit in Food Wars in the first no, not first episode, third episode, where the main character says, "Oh, I read that pineapple was good for, something, but I was too young. I couldn't go get pineapple or something like that." And I think it was less about, I got the impression it was less about like, oh, I can't go to the grocery store on my own. I think it was more like the pineapple would have been too expensive for me to buy as a kid kind of thing.
Hmm. That's interesting because melon as delicacy was also slightly hinted at in Yakitaki Japan too. Because I mean it's not that all melons are super expensive, but they had like this extremely exquisite like peak like of the crop melon that was supposed to like make or break this one person's recipe. And I feel like that could relate to a couple things. It could relate to like melons in general being expensive, and this just happened to be a more expensive one, or it could just relate to like quality of ingredients. I think is just a lot more emphasized than we're than we're used to in American cuisine, because like That is emphasized, but I don't know if it's to the same extent.
Here, definitely no. And I think that's part of what was really interesting about that episode in Fresh Baked Japan, too, was that they were kind of, like, comparing, like, oh, this super expensive, high-quality melon that you pay hundreds of dollars for versus, like, the main character just using a can of melon soda to make his melon bread.
Mm.
And it's really funny, too, because they always set this up in a way where, like, oh no, is he going to succeed? He literally just bought a can of melon soda. What an idiot, right? But, and it shows that by, like, a character from the main cast, he is given a slice of this really expensive melon, and he eats it to the rind and almost bites his fingers from how delicious it is, right? And then they're like, oh no, what's he gonna do? Oh, he bought a can of melon soda. Oh no, what? We're doomed.
We're doomed.
And it turns out in the end that, like, by making it into, like, in a different way, completely, like, avoiding the way he describes, it's like this big thing, like, the like, forever dilemma of making good melon bread, right, is that it comes in two parts, and he overcomes that by making it in two different ovens, which is, like, this big brain moment, right? And it's like, wait, that makes sense. Why didn't anyone think about that? Right? And then meanwhile they go to, like, judge the other melon bread with the really expensive melon, and the character's like, oh, I use the entire melon to make all of the juice, and it's 100%, and it's like this melon costs like $500, and it's the most delicious melon ever. And they give it to the character, and it's like, I don't have to taste it, and it's gonna taste good. And
there are so many.
Made it the same exact way everyone else makes melon bread.
Just a side note, I just looked up about melon, like as you were just saying, is very expensive. But actually, apparently, the only fruit, at least according to this article, and I can I'll put a link in the description. But it says pineapples and bananas are actually the only cheap fruit. So maybe that Food Wars thing wasn't actually about the cost. But yeah, Whimsy, you had something to say?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, the gags in that show, because you just mentioned a few of them. I'm sorry. I know I'm going on and on about Yakitaki Japan, like, over and over again. The gags are so good, but it also got me to think about just, like, food anime gags in general, because I feel like that's kind of, like, the hallmark of the genre to an extent. Yes, part of the hallmark is anime animates really yummy looking food, so we all drool, right? But, like, it's been talked about before, by other YouTubers. I think Gigguk made a video about this, because food is not something you can taste with your eyes, right? To convey that food is good, just the hallmark of the food anime genre is just the over dramatic reactions, and that's kind of what I think, like, sets apart different series. And I know that's probably bold for me to say, I haven't watched that much food anime, but this is just, like, my impression going in. You could do the really dramatic reactions in, like, kind of a cheap way, or you could get, like, really creative with it. So, like, I don't know, I just wasn't really impressed by, like, Food Wars extremely fan service heavy, like, sort of reaction gags, when I had just watched in Yakitaki Japan, I had just watched them do some of the most wackiest, most, like, creative, genuinely, like, gut-bustingly hilarious gags I've, like, ever seen. Like, they were so funny. So I don't know. It's interesting to think about, like, the gags themselves and, like, the different ways you can go about them and different ways you can do them. And if you want to see a really good spoof of food anime in general, but, like, food anime gags especially in live action, watch Kentaro the Sweet Tooth Salaryman. Just wanted to throw in that advertisement, because it's amazing and hilarious.
That show is hilarious too. Like, there's a lot of different gags they pull in that show, where, like, he eats a parfait and he has, like, this waking dream where he sees all of his, like, coworkers as, like, the different fruit in his parfait, and they're all, like, communicating little character things about themselves, but it's, like, coming through as, like, they have a head. Their head is replaced by the fruit he associates them with. It's just like, this man is not sane. He is, like, hallucinating as he's eating this parfait.
Keep in mind, this is live action, which makes it, like, even better. It's so good. Have you watched that yet, Otno?
You showed it to me.
Okay,
So I've seen
okay.
the first episode.
Okay, you should watch more. It's so good. And also, like, when I watched Kentaro, the Sweet Tooth Salaryman, Eddie had shown me food anime. Like, I knew what it was as a concept. He'd shown me, like, enough, like, one or two episodes of food anime where I'd seen the over dramatized reaction gags. So I understood Kantaro and, like, what it was spoofing. But I feel like I should watch it again now, too, once I've gotten even more, like, experience with the anime food genre, because I feel like it'll make me appreciate it even more. Also, that show is one of the primary reasons why, if we ever go to Japan, food tourism, and that was food tourism was already going to be a big part of our trip, but now especially because I actually want to try out at least one or two of the cafes featured, because the food just looks so good and so amazing.
As someone that has been in Japan, I can say that the food does look great. Um, for anyone that's thinking about going to Japan, Tokyo is a blast for like very strange foods. If you go to Akihabara, sorry, you can get a bunch of rainbow stuff for foods. Just like rainbow cotton candy, rainbow grilled cheese sandwich, um, and other rainbows. I ate a rainbow grilled cheese sandwich. It tastes like a grilled cheese sandwich, but it was made better because it was a rainbow.
Okay, but did you have like this life changing, reality altering hallucination when you bit into it and tasted the cheese where you were riding on the back of a unicorn through a rainbow field of like rainbows and flowers and magicalness?
No, I can't say. I feel like maybe I did not have the full Japanese experience. Maybe.
Oh my god.
I hope that we don't actually have a plan to like recreate these situations too, because as much as I loved Kentaro, the Sweet Tooth Salary Man, as like a show, that man is insane.
Oh yeah,
He
no.
put on
I
like
wouldn't do
7
that.
layers
That's...
of clothes during like 100+ degree like summer so he could enjoy ice cream better.
For a second, I thought you
That
were.
man is like he was on the brink of dehydration so he could enjoy ice cream a little bit more. That guy is actually insane. I hope that no one actually follows his ideas in like eking out the most amount of enjoyment in a food experience.
When you said reenact those experiences, I thought you meant we're not going to go to Japan, go to these shops, and act crazy. And I was like, of course not. Please, please, okay? We already have a bad reputation. Weebs already have a bad reputation. Please do not travel to Japan and act out food anime reactions in the restaurants. That is horrible. I was just like, of course not. What? That's not what you meant, but that's what I thought you meant, and I was immediately just like, no, don't do that.
I'm surprised they don't
cringy.
They don't make weebs like wear like a pass that says like that warns all people as you're walking by that like you are a weeb. You are liable to do strange, weird things that you've seen in anime.
Please be respectful of like culture. Please do not reduce it all to anime tropes. Like, please, for the love of God.
At least none of you are like me that went to a town specifically in Germany so that I could take my Hitalia figurine and pose it on the wall.
That's not bad.
No, that was worth it. I don't know which town you're referencing, but let me tell you,
the town that they say like was like the base for the like city in Attack on Titan.
Oh, okay.
So like I took my Germany Hitalia figurine to the town.
That's an acceptable way to be a weeb broad. Now, good job, very good.
I'm gonna say every Hitalia fan is probably really jealous of you for being able to do that, and I'm sure Hitalia Germany is also very happy that you took him there to his homeland.
Yes, I'm sure that's exactly what he was thinking. But Yeah. Food.
Food. We get off topic pretty quick. Sorry.
We just realized that every single anime is related to food.
It kind of is,
And
though.
every show's an anime. So, there.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, thinking about it now, back to Golden Kamui, part of the really interesting thing about that show is that it not only brings up really cool, like, little historical things about native Japanese culture during that time period, it also brings up, like, food traditions for those cultures as well. Actually, in the last episode of the anime that I actually just watched, but I think came out this week, um, they showed that these people who live closer to um, like the island of Japan that like basically borders the edge of Russia. They make this sweet bread from flour and reindeer cheese because their whole life is centered around like raising and tending to reindeer. So they use their like milk in like breads and things like that, and it looked really good.
That's cool. I think it's time for a commercial.
Do you like con men? Do you like people named Reagan? Do you like psychics? Then you should watch Mob Psycho today. It's got all three of those. And Reagan. Wow.
All right, so after you just made your like really amazing articulate point about Golden Kamui, we all had like a really long pause, like we didn't know what to say. The only thing that I can think to talk about is to crap on Food Wars more. And I feel like maybe I've done enough of that. I was gonna contrast it to like the simplicity of Restaurant to Another World, that it's just such a simple show, but it works really well. And I feel like Food Wars could take a note from like, you don't need to go so hard. Part of like the appeal of this genre is just like the elegant simplicity. Blah! But yeah, I've probably harped on that enough. So, A.N.I.M.E has suggested that we wrap this up, but since it is a holiday episode, I was thinking, before we go, maybe we could go around and each talk about what we're going to do for the holidays. Yay!
Yay! Actually, there was a little bit that I wanted to talk about with Restaurant to Another World, because I feel like we've talked about food in like a lot of different anime, but we haven't talked about the most important one. Food in isekai anime.
Of course, we need that.
So, as everyone knows, isekai had a huge boom in like the past couple of years, where like literally everything on a season was isekai. And everything was isekai'd. My butter knife was in an isekai as a character. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if that's real. It could be, right? A guy turned into a slime, and it was isekai. That happened. So what more could we have than the fact that this guy works at a restaurant, owns it, and every Saturday after he closes the restaurant, it just gets transported into another world. And he's sitting there, you know, cooking food, and suddenly he hears the bell ring on his door, and he turns around, and there's a lizard man staring at him, going, "Hi, I would like to order an omelet." I really love that series. It is really, really elegant. Like that show is really nice and simplistic in comparison to like how food anime is usually based on like these really huge reactions and these really complex like cooking methods and, you know, puzzles they overcome. Restaurant to Another World is just about food in another world, and it's really nice.
I agree. I also want to make a clarification too, because as much as I crap on shows like Food Wars, as much as I've joked in a previous podcast that like this is the podcast where we insult everything you like, I want to specify that I do not think there's anything wrong with enjoying quote quote bad, and that's obviously a subjective term, but like quote quote bad anime. Like sometimes you just want to shut your brain off and enjoy quote quote trash or whatever. So I just really wanted to make sure I said that because yeah, I'm not being a snob all over up in here, okay? You're more than like anyone can watch Food Wars, anyone can enjoy Food Wars. We're all allowed to like what we like. Not everything has to be deep. Not everything has to be like amazing. Like what you like. If you want to consume what you want to consume, that's cool. I consume trash. Valkyrie the Liberator had some great ideas. Definitely trash. Really enjoyed it. So we're all entitled to that.
We are. We're all entitled to eat trash food sometimes. You know, junk food.
And you
is
had to
something
bring it
that
back to the puns.
Everyone loves.
You
and everyone enjoys.
You had
So,
to bring
you
it
know
back
what?
to the puns.
I'm not gonna judge anyone for enjoying junk food, whether it's, you know, a whole box of donuts or it's Sword Art Online as a series. You can enjoy whatever you like. That's for you to enjoy, not for me.
Gotta end on that burn.
Yeah.
Whimsy, how did you enjoy Restaurant to Another World?
Oh yeah, I feel like we've already said it. Like, it was just so elegant and wholesome and made me feel good, buttery. Oh no, I just did a pun. Good. The next word, seriously, brain, flowery. You couldn't have come up with a word that didn't relate to food. Like, I literally was mad about puns, and then the next word was a pun. Ah. Okay. That was awful. That was totally not planned. Like, what the heck? I hate my brain right now. Okay. I enjoyed it. Okay, there we go. I enjoyed it. Woo!
That's it? You liked it? That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm broken. I can't say anymore.
I think my favorite part of Restaurant to Another World was probably the part where an adventurer was following her grandfather's, like, journal to, like, the most, like, valuable thing in his collection of treasures, and went into this cave and then fought a goblin, like, had a knife fight with a goblin, right? Defeated him, and then suddenly comes into this clearing and goes, finally, I can find my grandfather's most sacred treasure that he wrote about. And she sees a door, and she's confused. Like, what is this? What is going? Did this lead somewhere? Is this like a trap or something? And she walks in, opens the door, and the chef from the restaurant looks over the counter and goes, "Hi, welcome." And she's like, she thrusts her knife. It's like, what is this place? Who are you? And he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is a restaurant. And she finally realizes that her grandfather's most sacred treasure was the food he got at this restaurant.
So wholesome.
It's so wholesome. Also, it's continually really hilarious when people just appear in the restaurant, like, brandishing weapons and, like, threatening the employees because they have no idea what's going on. Because this restaurant has a door that just appears in their world on Saturday. And, like, sometimes they just get into the most, like, wide array of circumstance, and just this door appears. Like, there was one where this guy was riding from his castle because he was being chased by evil creatures. And he's starving. Like, his horse is passed out. He's, like, on the brink of collapsing, and he's clawing his way up this hill with his bare hands, and he sees in the distance a door, and he clambers to it. It's going, please, the gods of this land, grant me strength, and he opens it. And the chef comes out and goes, "Guy, you look like you had a rough time. Would you like some food?" And he brings out his sword, and he's like, I need food. Give me food.
Oh yeah, he's like, you are a servant of this land. You are a subject of the king. You will feed me, peasant. Basically.
And the chef's like, yeah, guy, that's what I was gonna do in the first place. And it's so funny because he feeds him, and he's like, oh man, I don't have any money. What am I gonna do? Like, after threatening to kill this man over his food, because he has to go deliver this message to the king that his castle is attacked. He's like, oh no, I feel so bad. I've forgotten my money.
At least he realized the error of his ways.
Yeah. The good food clears classism, folks.
Good food solves all problems. This is the thing that shows up in Toriko too.
Bridges across all boundaries and of humanity, and yeah.
If you're wondering how that restaurant owner never gets, like, stabbed by, like, a random passerby when his door appears in different areas, it's because a giant dragon discovered this door as well and told everyone that if they ever hurt her treasure, which is the restaurant, she will come and annihilate them.
That's adorable.
Yeah, it's
Aw.
such a wholesome series. And on that note, Hanako-kun is desperately calling me. So it's time to cut to a commercial.
Oh my
I'd be like,
god.
guess who's back again? SAO for its second season now.
SAO Shadow Legends.
I don't know if you guys have heard of this Sword Art Online, but it's hitting the market really hard.
Yeah.
Everyone loves it. And so should you.
All right, we are back, and we wanted to briefly, before we end this podcast, because it's the holidays, we thought a good outro would be to just kind of go around and each of us say what we have planned for the holidays. So, now, would you like to talk about your holiday plans?
My plans are to not get other people sick or get sick myself. That is my plan.
That is a good plan. Wash your hands, gamers. Oh, God. Sorry.
My holiday plans are going to revolve around dreading the cold of winter and probably watching more anime.
And I live with him, so my holiday plans are probably about the same. Hopefully, though, because it fits into the theme of this episode, we will also eat some good food. Yay!
Oh, that was what you were trying to get us to say.
No, I mean, I wasn't trying to get us to say anything. I was just trying to think about, like, I realized as soon as I was like, hey, what are our plans for the holidays? I was just like, wait, global pandemic. Do we have plans for the holidays?
No, we don't. All you stay away from everyone. Plague is not the gift you want to give your grandma this December.
I guess my plan for the holidays is to relax because I'll have 2 weeks off. So, woo!
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Thank you everyone for listening to our episode today. I hope you enjoyed sampling all of these anime dishes that we put together for you. I hope you enjoyed their flavors.
The rage coursing through me right now. But yeah, this was fun.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.